Hi, guys. Today I'm talking to Abby Murphy from the Breakup Breakdown podcast about manifesting and attracting her dream partner. Abby has some specific questions about her dating life that we're going to dig into, and I can't wait for you to listen. Stay tuned. Hey there, it's your girl Nelly, matchmaker and dating coach. We talk about all things high value dating, how to meet your person, how to find love in today's dumpster fire dating economy, and also how to become a high value single because, as I always say, we don't attract what we want in life, we attract what we are. So if that sounds interesting to you, please make sure you follow and subscribe to this podcast, and I can't wait to take you along this journey. Welcome to the High Value Dating Podcast.
Joining me is Nelly, the #1 matchmaker for high value singles. She recently came out with a podcast called High Value Dating. So if you are single and looking to find love with someone that you feel like is right on your level, you got to tune into it. I have listened to, I think, almost every episode so far. And I've seriously loved just how blunt and straight to the point you are when it comes to dating advice, because I think it's sort of like business. You can't really, there's no fluff. You can't BS your way into finding the right person. You really have to come at it from an angle of being truly authentic and being real about what people are looking for, not just, faking it till you make it.
Totally. Thank you so much for having me on, Abby. Huge fan. And yeah, it's been exciting launching a podcast, but I've been giving dating advice and dating coaching and setting people up for years now. So it's awesome to be able to have one more avenue to do that. But I've learned a lot along the way in talking to high value singles, high value men and women, people of all demographics and walks of life. And I'm excited to chat with you today.
Very cool. So we're going to be talking about manifestation and the law of attraction, which is not something I have really had any experience or discussion with at all. But it is something that I think I've thought a lot about, especially as I've gotten into dating in my late 20s and trying to figure out how I can stop chasing, because I think when you consider yourself quote unquote high value, you just kind of want to make it happen. You just want to get out there, find your person and just get the job done. But I think with law of attraction, it's sort of less about doing and more about just becoming, right?
Totally. And it's also about your thought process, your mindset. Our thoughts create our reality. And so what we believe to be true about ourselves and our situations will manifest in terms of what we're able to attract into our lives. I always say we don't attract what we want in this world, we attract what we are. So if you want to be with someone who's, let's say fit, successful, a go-getter, all the qualities that you put down on paper, step back and ask yourself, am I embodying those qualities that I want to attract into my life? If the answer is no, the good news is you can just get to work today and keep chipping away at it, and you will start making progress toward attracting that person in, as opposed to looking for someone to fill a void inside of you. And I think that's where a lot of people sometimes go wrong in dating, is they, especially us women, I hate to say it, but I notice it more with women sometimes than men, where it's you've got these long wish lists, right? All these things that you're looking for. But if you don't actually take a step back and look yourself in the mirror and ask yourself, what am I bringing to the table that this type of person would value and this type of person would want? And am I embodying the qualities, the characteristics, the values, the lifestyle, the hobbies that I'm trying to find in a mate? Then that's probably why you haven't met them yet.
So you just brought up the wish list. And I think women specifically are so notorious for having something in their notes app. And it's 6'3", curly brown hair, basically just Adam Brody, and the whole gambit of things that we want in a partner. Being realistic, if you're telling me I can have a wish list, but it needs to be narrowed down, how big can the wish list be? What do you think is a quantitative estimate for what kind of things and how much you can have on that wish list that you think is realistic for most women?
Yeah, it's a great question. I would say the same thing to women as I do to men, and that's you're allowed to be picky and you're allowed to have really high expectations and requirements for the partner of your dreams, only if, and this is the asterisk, you also have equally or higher expectations, standards, and requirements of yourself. So the pickier you are with someone else, no issue there, but the pickier I'm going to expect you to be with yourself too,
Mm.
right? For example, if you want someone who's, you mentioned an Adam Brody, right? Surfer, potentially has a full community of people in their lives, someone who is attractive, someone who takes care of themselves physically, someone who's got hobbies, someone who's successful, all of the things and qualities that, I think a lot of people ask for. And it's not necessarily just about the height, right? I mean, that's for some women really important, for others, not as much. But you have to position yourself as the type of person that someone like that would want to date. And that's the question I think a lot of people need to start with is, am I bringing to the table what the type of person I'm looking to be with would value? And we're not mind readers, but if you put those things down on paper and then you actually start to do that work just through writing, even, you'll notice that you make a lot of progress. And it's a quick exercise, not always an easy exercise because it requires us to be highly introspective and sometimes a little bit real with ourselves in a way that might make us uncomfortable. But if you really want someone who brings a lot to the table, it's a worthwhile exercise. So I would start there.
Well, I mean, yeah, on the other side of that discomfort, just like anything, is gonna be progress towards what you actually want. And it's hard to,
Mhm.
like, look at yourself in the mirror and be like, "Okay, well, if I'm not seeing the results that I want in dating, there obviously needs to be some kind of change." And at the end of the day, the only thing I can control is myself, which is what I think I
Mhm.
love about the idea of law of attraction. But what is probably more fascinating to me is the manifestation piece because
Yeah.
I have, like, no experience with manifestation whatsoever. I grew up in the deep South, super Christian, so manifestation was always that thing that you're just, like, supposed to stay away from. It's the Satanist thing. So
Mhm.
tell me, like, what is manifestation and how does that relate to my love life?
So, manifestation, put very simply, is your dreams being realized, right? And so you might say, I have no experience with manifestation, but you might have, and I guarantee you've subconsciously manifested several things in your life. Like perhaps there was a point in your life where you wanted to launch a podcast and you had this little voice, like, I have this creative desire, this kind of burning fire within me to share my message. And you manifested having a podcast, right? When you put that energy into the world, you position yourself to attract it in. So, whether you consciously are manifesting or subconsciously are manifesting, we are all manifesting all the time, right? Your life is a manifestation of your thoughts. So, what you tell yourself is very important. And what's unfortunate is 80% of the thoughts that go through most people's minds on a daily basis are negative ones. So, if we choose to take control of our thoughts and actually filter through the negativity and learn how to reframe negative thoughts into positive thoughts, right? We position ourselves to lead a more glass half full mindset, which I also call an abundance based mindset, which is really just putting out that expectation that the universe or God or source energy, if you believe in a higher power, or even if you don't, right? Things are working for me. Things are working in my favor, not against me, not to me, but for me. And when you have that mindset, you actually become a lot more magnetic to what you want. And this is kind of very simply summed up as like the power of positive thinking, right? I think it's a Dale Carnegie book, The Power of Positive Thinking. I read it years ago. Choosing to think positive thoughts will actually attract more positive thoughts, right? Negativity is contagious, but so is positivity. What you believe to be true about yourself will manifest. For example, if you tell yourself, Abby, I'm going to be single forever, I'm never going to get married, I'm never going to have my great love story, I'm never going to start a family, all men suck, all women suck, XYZ. Well, you are perpetuating that narrative through your thoughts. And because you're operating from that mindset, your energy is probably going to come off a lot more bitter. You're probably going to repel a lot more opportunities, and you're going to be creating an aura that blocks off the outcome you're looking to attract. So instead, why not just entertain the possibility of things working out? You have nothing to lose, right? Why not choose to tell yourself, actually, the reason I'm single is I just haven't met my person yet. Or my person is actually on their way to me. And the reason I haven't met them yet is because I'm still doing the work. I got to go through this chapter solo before I can kind of graduate to the next level and enter that dream relationship. Or just because I'm this age doesn't mean that I can't still get married, right? And choosing to seek out examples of people who defy your negative thinking. I can point out so many people, women and men, who have found love later in life, who have started families later in life, right? But if you take on the mindset that, oh, because I'm this age, all hope is lost, well, guess what? You're right. You are right. So I just think you have nothing to lose. And I think that manifestation is actually a lot easier than most people even realize. Actually, let me correct that. It is simpler than most people realize. It's not necessarily easy because changing your thought process and changing how you speak to yourself about your situation, that requires habitual day-to-day changes in your self-talk.
Mm. So it's not necessarily like this woo woo, I need to get like chimes and sage and manifest something in my life. It's really just having positive thinking and feeling like there are good things out there for me. So it can be kind of tangible.
Yeah, I think whatever practice works for you to connect with those desires, I would applaud. I don't think that lighting a candle and saging your house personally is going to make a difference if your mindset isn't changed. This is my personal opinion. I know there's some people who write it off as fact, the other people don't. My personal opinion is everything is kind of a placebo. So if we tell ourselves that we are going to light this candle, we're going to say a prayer, we're going to practice gratitude, we're going to call in the good things, we're setting that intention. The candle isn't doing the work, the sage is not doing the work. It's more about the intention setting. And if setting a candle helps you clarify that intention and put that positive energy out there, go for it. Set more candles. I have a bunch of candles in my apartment. I also just like the smell and I like candles in general, but it's really important that you develop that solid mindset. And I don't think you need to go super woo-woo and super hippy-dippy to be a powerful manifester. But I do think it's imperative to change the way you speak to yourself about your situation.
100%. So, what does that look like in practice? Like, if I'm going to get off this call and I'm going to decide, all right, today is the day that I start having a more positive outlook on where my dating life is going, and I
Yeah.
want to start manifesting. What does that look like for me as somebody who I guess is a realist and wants to be positive, but is, ready to do quote unquote whatever it takes?
Love it. Yeah. I would say it depends on what your best kind of learning style is. Like there's different techniques on how to manifest because different people respond to different techniques differently, right? So one person might benefit from positive affirmations, someone else might benefit from changing their environment. If I could summarize some things that have worked really well for myself and my clients, I would say number one, developing some affirmations that put you in the end state. So these are I am statements that you recite to yourself every day. So you write them down, then you read them back to yourself on a daily basis for, I would say, a minimum of 3 weeks, minimum. And they put you in that end state of the wish fulfilled. So, for example, if you are currently single, the affirmation could be if you're a woman looking to find a husband, my husband is seeking me just as much as I'm seeking him. Or I am a magnet for marriage minded men, or I am wifey material, right? These are I am statements that put you in the end state because what happens is through repetition, we actually rewire our subconscious. It's crazy powerful. It sounds very simplistic. It sounds, before I started doing the affirmations, I thought it was kind of silly, like all these things you see on Instagram, but they are truly powerful. And I have seen them work wonders for me and my clients. Secondly, I would say meditation, carving out time every single day to actually get in touch with your desires. For me, I like to do guided meditations on YouTube, different ones for different reasons. One of my favorites is Joe Dispenza meditations. I also like quantum leap meditations because they force you to be future focused. So you're thinking about the future. There are a lot of theories around parallel universes. Essentially, what that means is there are different versions of you that exist infinitely in the future. So, like, there's a version of you that's married with 5 kids. There's a version of you that is single. There is a version of you that's a billionaire. There's a version of you that is broke. You decide which version of you want to step into. And through quantum leap meditations, you're forced to kind of actually embody that energy and that frequency. And repeating that process will actually put you closer and closer to getting on that path. Another thing that's worked really well for my clients and I in terms of being able to accelerate the manifestation process is visualization. So really visualizing yourself living the life that you want. Maybe it's you envisioning yourself getting proposed to on a beach with a bed of roses. Maybe it's you envisioning yourself starting a business, right? We all have different goals in life, but take the time to actually see yourself doing that. Because when you see yourself doing that, your brain doesn't know the difference between what's real and what's not. And so visualization is incredibly powerful. Also, become protective of your energy. If you have people around you who are naysayers and you have people around you who are extremely negative and who poo poo on your ideas or tell you that you're crazy for thinking that you can get XYZ, be cognizant of that energy. And if you can, try to limit it or remove it entirely from your life. And this can be uncomfortable because I always say, your future life will cost you your current one. Sometimes you need to let go of the things and the people that weigh you down in order to soar. But how badly do you want to get to where you want to go? That's the question you need to ask yourself. So it might actually cost you relationships. It might mean no longer talking to that toxic friend or cutting out that family member or at least limiting your interactions. And, the road to the top is sometimes a lonely one. And I would say to anyone who's afraid of being lonely, seek out people, connections, resources online. You can literally watch a YouTube video of a motivational speaker, and that right there will put you in that excited state. Another thing, too, this is very important in manifestation, being clear about what you're trying to manifest. If you do not have that clarity, Abby, then you're not going to have a direction. And the thing is, direction is so much more important than speed, right? You can be going a million miles an hour, but if you're not heading toward the place that you want to go, well, you're never going to arrive at your manifestation. So, being intentional, being specific, being really granular with what you want will help you get it even quicker. I would start with those things.
Well, what I love about those affirmations that you were talking about is that it touches on something that I have heard time and time again from therapists that I've spoken to on my podcast. And what I've really found through 3 years of doing my podcast and basically doing like this giant case study on breakups is that really a lot of the relationship problems that people face, really at the root of it is self-esteem and self-worth issues. And what I think a
Yes.
lot of those affirmations and what that manifesting does is it affirms your self-worth and your self-respect and reminding you who you are or who you want to be. But also for the people who maybe already have a baseline of self-esteem and don't really struggle with it that much, I also feel like it gets you ready for when it does come into your life. Because I know for
Yes.
me, like I'm a big self-sabotager. And
Mhm.
sometimes when good things come into my life, like maybe I'm at a bar and that guy that I thought was out of my league is coming up to me and flirting with me. I start to panic and get a little anxious and self-sabotage because I wasn't expecting it. And then maybe I wasn't
Mhm.
prepared for it. Or maybe I have that voice in the back of my head that's like, this guy is way too cute for you. You like, no, this is not going to work. So
Mhm.
when good things do come your way, you're not surprised by them and you can actually be prepared to take it on and thrive.
Correct. I compare it a lot to fitness, right? It's like a muscle that you have to build and you have to grow. And the more you work at it, the stronger you get. Think about the first time you go to the gym. It always sucks. It is always hard. But the more you practice and the more you train, the more it becomes easy. And then you're like, wait, I don't want to be lifting 10-pound dumbbells anymore. I'm ready for the 25-pound dumbbells, right? And so, yes, the goalpost always moves, but you get stronger and stronger. And the more worthy you feel, the more that will radiate. And the more that radiates, the more you attract in. Because if you think about the most attractive people, they're not always the people who are the best looking. They're the people who walk tall. They're the people who know their value. They're the people who feel content in their own skin, right? That is beautiful. That is magnetic. Yes, looks matter. I've never said they don't. I'm, actually uh, pretty disliked for being for being super kind of straightforward on that matter. But looks will only get you so far. Looks might get you the date, but they're not going to get you the relationship. And that's why it's really important that you feel solid inside, worthy and deserving of what you want. And if you don't currently feel worthy or deserving of what you want, start working at that. That's great news. That's your roadmap.
Mm-hmm. For these new concepts, like for people like me who have never started even really even thinking about manifesting or anything like that, I would love to hear either a personal anecdote or maybe something that you've worked on with your clients where you've really worked on those affirmations and manifesting what you want and actually seeing it come to fruition.
Yeah, totally. I mean, I manifested my career. So and I've done that multiple times before, but I used to work a corporate desk job. It was a standard kind of 9 to 5 job. And I was doing really well in my career. I was killing it. But I always knew that I was destined for something more. I always felt this kind of burning desire in my stomach that this was not my calling. I was meant to help people. I wanted to somehow do something creative and entrepreneurial, and I wanted to work with people and I wanted to inspire people. I wasn't sure what that would look like. And I remember I had bought a book, can't remember the name of it. A friend gifted it to me, and it forced you to write down, it was like almost like a workbook, manifestations that you were trying to realize. So I had, for whatever reason, before I even was on social media, wrote down, I want to be a dating coach on a TV show. Not sure where that came from, but I wrote that down. 7 months later, I ended up starting a TikTok account from zero, giving dating advice. Fast forward, I ended up quitting my corporate job within literally a matter of 12 months. And I got cast on a TV show, and we were filming that summer as a dating coach and matchmaker. And that's why it's really important to be super clear about what you want. And how do you get that clarity? It starts with being honest with yourself. I think a lot of us like to lie to ourselves and say, well, I can just do this job forever and I'll learn to like it. Or I can just be in this relationship forever and I'll learn to make it work. Or I actually, you know what? I'm not meant to be a really fit person. So I'm just going to learn to put up with my body, or I'm just going to learn to, put up with my financial situation, right? Maybe you aren't making a lot of money right now and you start telling yourself, I'm not meant to be rich. I'm not meant to be a wealthy person. And so you continue to convince yourself to stay in your circumstance. Guess what? If you simply make a shift, it's literally a decision in your mind that you deserve more, and you don't need to have the plan. You don't need to have the roadmap. You don't need to know how you're going to get there. I certainly did not know how I was going to end up on TV, how I was going to end up as a dating coach. There's no roadmap for this career. But if you decide that you want more for yourself, the universe will conspire in your favor and things will start coming into place in a way that doesn't even make sense,
Hmm.
right? It'll just naturally start coming into place. And there are things that are manifesting in my life right now. I don't feel comfortable necessarily talking about them, that are a manifestation of mine that I set an intention for 6 months ago. And so, like, this is an ongoing thing because, like I said, our manifestations always move, right? You get the TV show, then you want another TV show.
Right.
You hit a certain amount of money, then you want more money, right? So it's fine to have that, but recognize that the life you're living might also be a manifestation that you set for yourself years ago. And so that should be enough data that you are a powerful manifester. And if you're not happy with your current situation, amazing, because now you have the opportunity to change it. And I think that's beautiful.
Yeah, that's so cool and so ballsy. I mean, to leave what could have been so comfortable, like the corporate job with the benefits and like the stable salary, and to keep like climbing that corporate ladder and know where you're going to go. But to take a chance and to say, I know I don't have an education in like dating or matchmaking or whatever, but I want to do that. I'm going to go for it and make it happen. So kudos to you, A, for doing that. But I also want to know, like, is it confidence? Is it just running straight towards your goals? Like what made you say like, "Oh, I'm qualified here to give some dating advice?"
Yeah. Well, first of all, I left a very comfortable situation. I also lost my visa when I quit that job. I lost a 6 figure salary, and I was really young. I was like 25 and I didn't have a fallback. So, what I always tell people is you have to bet on yourself. You have to be willing to go all in on you, right? You are the best investment you'll ever make. And that's what I would say to anyone who is trying to manifest either a dream career or a new life for themselves. Um, as far as your second point, like it's it's one of those things, I think, Abby, where if you believe in yourself, there is no limit to what you can achieve. If you, and yeah, I didn't feel qualified, frankly. I mean, there is that kind of saying, fake it till you make it. I was just doing what I would be doing if I wasn't paid. And actually, I wasn't paid. I didn't make a dime off of dating coaching for like a year and a half. So following your passion can really pay off. And most people are like, well, I don't know. Not most people, a lot of people I hear are like, I don't know what my passion is. I would say, what would you do if money wasn't an issue? What would you be doing with your life if nobody was paying you anything. Like if you could just pick anything to do, right? For me, it was like I would be giving advice to people. I like giving advice to people. I love coaching people. I love inspiring and motivating people. Like that comes naturally to me. I cannot turn it off. So I just leaned into something that I love to do. I never went into it thinking this would be a career. I never went into it thinking I would monetize this or get followers off of this. It was kind of a joke when I started out. I was just posting silly TikTok videos because it was COVID and everyone was on TikTok and I was like isolated from my friends. So I was like, let me just post some fun videos on the internet. Why not? And that parlayed into something bigger because I followed my calling. So if anyone wants to find their dream job or even, live their dream life, because sometimes your calling is a city, sometimes your calling is a hobby, you know, actually do that thing that inherently you really want to do and figure it out. Just figure it out.
Mm, that's so powerful. And you're clearly born to do this. I can just tell, like, you just radiate such like beautiful, inspiring energy. And I feel like one of the coolest parts about your job is just how many people you get to work with and inspire. So I'd love to hear just a moment or a memory of working with a client and getting them to a new place in their dating life or their career life where you could really see that what you've been doing really made a difference on them.
Yeah, totally. I love what I do because I get to meet so many people from diverse backgrounds. And I really appreciate, by the way, the compliment. Um, I've had a lot of client success stories. I've had people credit me for starting their IVF journeys, getting married, leaving toxic relationships. I can't pick one that really stands out more than another, but one that recently really touched me is I have one client who was single for about 25, maybe 30 years. And she's in her 50s. And she joined my coaching program and ended up actually getting in a relationship with an amazing man who flew her to London, flew her to Cape Cod, gifted her with diamond earrings. And I remember her saying, I originally didn't even feel worthy of the diamond earrings. I was like, this is too much. And then, seeing that shift of like, actually, why not me? Why not me? And I was really touched by that because, I think a lot of people who, especially have been single for a long time, might have this mindset of, well, if I've been single for X amount of years, then that means I'm going to be single forever, right? Using history as data for what the future will be. And that's true, but guess what? We have the power to change the path that we are on. It's simply a decision. And seeing her go through that transformational shift of actually, I do deserve this. I do deserve this love story. I do deserve this man. I deserve these earrings. I think that was really fun and beautiful and it just touched me. And those are the kind of stories that I hear from my clients every single day. And I love that. And then matchmaking too, right? It's like, hey, I finally met a quality girl or I finally met a quality man who I actually could see a future with. I live for those success stories because that's the proof in the pudding. So yeah, I love what I do.
Yeah, that's awesome. And you really spoke to me when you said, well, I've been single for X amount of years, and that means I'm just going to be single forever. And that's definitely the main mindset that I find myself in, where I'm like,
Okay.
I'm looking at patterns in my life, and I've never been in a serious relationship, and I'm going to be,
Okay.
I'm 27, going to be 28. And I think for me, like what you said is something's got to change, but I'm like, how do I start that discovery to figure out what is going to change? Because I feel like I'm doing all the right things. I feel like I'm becoming the kind of person that the person I'm looking for is looking for. But,
Mhm.
how do I go about identifying what's got to pivot for me to get that relationship I'm looking for?
Yeah. Well, I think it's tough to perfectly answer that question. Not that there is a perfect question because I don't know exactly what you're looking for. Are you looking to start a family, get married one day, or you just looking for a boyfriend right now? What's
For
your
me,
end goal, babe?
For me, I'm not necessarily a kids person. So kids aren't really the goal. I think would just be nice. I think at this point my bar is so low that it would just be nice to have some company for a couple of months.
Okay.
But I mean, for me, like I came from a family where my mom and dad met at 26, 27, and when got married and have a really beautiful relationship. And I
Mhm.
think that's something that it's not that I think it's something. It is something that I want. And I believe it would add so much value to my life.
Mhm.
And I just have not found anyone to, commit
Yeah.
to.
Let me ask you this. Are you on dating apps right now?
Yes.
Okay. Are you also meeting people in person? Like, do you go out a lot?
I do go out a lot. I would say the last time I met somebody in the wild, like, I can't even remember the last time, like, a guy approached me. I
Okay.
find myself I will say because I'm, quote, unquote, "a high value woman," at least, I've always been the kind of girl to do what they say is drop the handkerchief or,
Yeah.
go up, say hi, make your presence known, and then kinda back out, and I haven't really seen any results with that, and I'm pretty objective. Because I think I'm very successful in my career, I also think I kind of have that objectiveness with my personal life, that I kind of know where I stack up. Like, I know, quote unquote, who's in my league. I know how to play the game. I
Mhm.
do think I'm strong at dating and flirtation, but it just seems like the guys that I'm interested in are maybe in some other dating pool or just don't approach me. So
Mhm.
I don't know. I'm in like a weird
What
situation.
are so give me 5 qualities you're looking for in a partner.
For me, I
Like,
really like guys who are very charismatic,
okay.
with, like, strong, bold personalities. Something that's, like, very, very attractive to me is, like, a guy that I don't feel like I can walk over,
Mhm.
and I find that on dating apps, a lot of the guys that I go out with are guys that are more passive,
Mhm.
and so that's why I would rather meet somebody in person because I feel like
Okay.
maybe guys
Well,
that
let's
I'm in yeah,
let's
wouldn't be
back up. I'm
yeah.
gonna ask you more questions. So, where are you currently based?
I'm in Atlanta.
Atlanta. Okay. You mentioned you grew up in the deep south with Christian roots. Is that important to you that you find a man of God, like a God-fearing man?
Um Yes and no. I think in my old age, I'm more open to not dating somebody who is Christian, but that would, I guess, be a plus.
Okay. Do you have a physical type?
Yes.
Okay, and what is that?
I like athletic guys, brunettes, kind of like your typical baseball player. I would say I like
Okay.
a baseball player look.
Okay. Like a stockier
Yeah,
guy
like,
or okay.
yeah, I guess I'm not looking for anything unrealistic, like, I'm not looking for, like, Thor, but
Yeah.
I'm very fit, I'm very active, I work out
Okay.
4 times a week, so I would like a guy who also prioritizes that.
Okay. Um, do you want this man to make a certain amount of money? Is that important to you or not really?
I want a guy with ambition, so it's
Okay.
not necessarily what he's making right now, and it's not even really a monetary value, but I do wanna feel like a guy is excited to go to work and see outcome from it, whatever that may
Okay.
be, whether it's creative or monetary.
Okay. Um, what I would say is if the athletic thing's really important to you, I would get involved in, and I'm not sure if you already are, but clubs and associations where you're going to be positioned to meet more men like that, right? Like there are probably not going to be a lot of guys like that at a Pilates studio or at a yoga studio, right? Not sure if you do those things. Do you do those things or?
Yes, I'm
All
big into
right.
Pilates, yeah.
Yeah. And Pilates is great, not knocking Pilates at all. But how many men are in your Pilates class?
Maybe one, and they're probably not into women.
There you go.
Yeah.
So maybe thinking about boxing, maybe thinking about joining a run club, excuse me. Maybe thinking about joining a high end gym, right? Where you're going to meet more kind of established, affluent men, excuse me, who are ambitious and who like to take care of themselves and who are also working out, right? One of my clients, actually, funny enough, so she was kind of on the Pilates train too, and she was doing like Orange Theory, and she really wanted a hot, athletic, kind of sporty, tall guy. She's a tall girl. And I said to her, why don't you join an Equinox? Yes, it might cost you a little bit more, right? It's an investment in yourself, though, but you're going to probably meet more men who are meeting those criteria. She joined an Equinox. She stopped going to Pilates. She still has access to Pilates classes, by the way, at her Equinox. But now she's around so many high value men at this equinox, and she never would have had that exposure had she not done that. See, a lot of the times it's not always a product issue, meaning it's not always that we, as our own product, are the problem. It's an exposure issue, a marketing issue, right? Are you getting in front of the right people? Are you in the right rooms? Because if you're not in the right rooms, then no one's going to be able to approach you. Or if you're in the wrong rooms, you're going to get approached, but it's going to be by people who you're unimpressed by. And then you're going to constantly wonder, why do I keep attracting guys like this? Well, it's because you're in the wrong rooms.
Mm.
So ask yourself if it's a product issue or a marketing issue. It might be a combination of two, but that's kind of your roadmap, right? If it is. Sometimes it's like, hey, we're in the right rooms. We're just not coming correct.
Mm.
Sometimes it's like, we're coming correct, but we're not in the right rooms.
All right, that's a good place to start. I know I will say because I love a baseball player and Atlanta is huge for the Braves. I'm like all this year is just posted up at Braves game. I'm like someone's gonna approach me. Someone's gonna
Yeah.
approach me, and I just been striking out. And so maybe it's just not my time. Maybe there's things I still need to work on that the universe is like we've got to give her a couple of more years before Mr. Right comes in. But
Well,
yeah, that's what I've been working on.
if we're also going to be having a very honest conversation about attracting men specifically, I would say knowing that men are visual creatures will work to your advantage, right? So if you're going to go to a baseball game, and actually I have one client who she was going to Dodgers games, and I told her, make sure when you're going to the Dodgers games, you're looking cute, right? Because most of the women there are in baseball caps and oversized jerseys.
Yeah.
And that's not an issue, but like if you're the one girl who's in like a cute sundress and a wedge, you're probably going to get a lot more looks and you're probably going to get approached more. And guess what? She did. So when you're showing up to these places that are primarily probably concentrated with men and families, right? I think that's usually the demo for sports games.
Yeah.
And you're, going to be in those environments anyways. Like I said, make sure you're coming correct, right?
Mm.
Sometimes it's being a little girlier. Sometimes it's also being the type of woman who gives a man a compliment, right? Drops the handkerchief. Doing those things could be the tiny tweaks that create massive impact long term.
Okay, well, I'm gonna start implementing that a little bit more. Gotta find out where they're hibernating now that it's gonna be like fall, winter. I'm like, where do they go after like baseball season and football season is over?
Santa. Well, again, it's worthwhile to put on paper kind of what your dream man is and what are some of the hobbies he has, right? We're approaching ski season. Maybe, if you want an athletic guy, maybe he's going to be at Park City. Maybe he's going to be in Aspen, right? And if you're not doing those things, you're going to lose that exposure. These are places that are concentrated with high value men who are athletic. So ski season's around the corner. I would say that might be worth taking up. What else? A lot of these guys golf. A lot of these guys play pickleball. If you want someone sporty and athletic, again, might be worth taking up a new hobby. Now, the pushback I usually get is, well, that costs money. Yes, like I said, your future life will cost you your current one, not just in terms of relationships and change, but sometimes investment too. We have to invest in ourselves. We are the only thing that we are always selling ourselves. So it's worthwhile to make that investment because it could be something that has a good ROI. And I do look at it from like a business perspective in a lot of senses, but I will tell you, I've had clients who they do join that golf course, they do join that country club or that private members club, or they take up that hobby, and overnight almost they meet that person who might not be their person, but introduces them to someone who's their person. Also, the one thing with manifestation that I forgot to mention is having patience and trusting in the process. When you put your trust and your faith in your journey and you say, you know what? Things are working out for me. I don't need to hyper control when things are going to happen. I don't need to know how things are going to happen. I just have faith that they are going to happen. And when you
Mm.
operate from that positioning, you are no longer coming from that place of desperation. You're coming from a place of ease. And especially when it comes to men, ladies, that's how you will actually attract them in even quicker because men do not like desperate women. It repels them, right? But the woman who's unbothered, the woman who's focusing on herself, the woman who's chilling, she's attractive energetically, right? Because she's not the one putting a ton of pressure on these men. And when you have, and by the way, same goes for men. Like, I think desperate men are also pretty energetically repellent. So yeah, it's worth it to focus on investing in yourself, becoming the best version of you, crafting and creating a life for yourself that you truly love, as opposed to waiting for someone to come in, change your life, make it magical. Because when you do that, you'll actually, and I keep saying it, you'll attract them in even quicker.
Mm. Killer advice. Well, I'll ask you one more thing before I let you go because I forgot that I'm going to a singles Halloween party on Friday. Yeah, and I'm so excited. I'm going with one of my single girlfriends. We are going as I'm going to be Sabrina Carpenter and she's going to be Jenna Ortega from the Taste music video. So what advice do you have for us and maybe other women that are going to some of these new single events that are popping up? Like, how can I go and have men approach me? Like, I don't want to show up and be the desperate girl, like putting pressure on them.
Yeah. Well, first of all, I think there's a difference between being desperate and making the first move. They're not necessarily the same thing. Um, what I would say is whenever I go to an event, especially by myself, but even with a friend, I always make a point to talk to at least 3 new people. Just as an exercise, getting in the habit of talking to people, intercepting people, not from a place of, I need them to like me, but more from a challenge, a personal growth exercise of, I just want to get in that habit and that routine of being a conversationalist, having that confidence to approach people in person. When you do that, you start to increase your connections, and you, like I said earlier, never know where those could lead and how those could blossom. When I moved to Los Angeles, I didn't have a lot of friends here. Actually, I had no friends here. So I started to talk to people, and little by little, I started to grow my network. And so I would encourage you at this party, Abby, to talk to at least 3 people. Okay. And it's nice that you have your friend too, but you can also make her approach 3 people, and then boom, you've got 6 people. Secondly, when you're at a singles event, I don't know if you drink, one of the easiest tricks in the game, you have a drink in your hand, go up to a guy, smile, and say cheers, and just cheers him, right? And then you
Okay.
could say, give him a compliment, great costume, by the way. And then ask him, or if he doesn't have a great costume, you could ask him, so I like what you've got going on here. What exactly is this called though? Right? So you're starting a conversation not about him specifically. You're not like, oh my God, you're so cute, or what's your name? You're starting it about the costume. The costume is the conversation starter. So I would leverage that when you're at this singles party.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much, Nelly. You absolutely crushed it and really taught me a lot about something that I haven't talked about in 3 years of doing a relationships podcast. So seriously, thank you for all the advice. And I'm going to take everything that you just told me and hopefully it's successful at the singles event on Friday. And I really appreciate your time. Thank you so much for coming on.
Oh my gosh, it was so much fun. We have to do this again. Thanks, Abby. It was a pleasure. So that's it for today's episode, guys. By the way, make sure to check out Abby's podcast, The Breakup Breakdown. I will have it linked below. And I want to remind you that if you have any dating questions or topics you would like me to cover, make sure you send me a short voice note over Instagram DMs, and you might be featured in a future podcast episode. And anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed today's episode. I could talk about manifestation and law of attraction forever. So if you guys want another episode on this, I would love to do that. And make sure, by the way, if you guys enjoyed, to rate and review on Spotify, Apple, or wherever you listen to podcasts. And if you're watching this on YouTube, please subscribe, and I'll talk to you next week. Bye.